and welcome back to another episode here at the SimTech Podcast. Today we're going to be talking to a couple of guests from MedAscend and who probably don't need an introduction these days because they're everywhere you look. Guys, welcome to the show, and can you give yourself what I say a corporate introduction?
Yeah, no, of course. And thank you so much for having us as well. It's really great to be here. I'm Ahmed. I'm CEO and co-founder of MedAscend. I lead the strategy, partnerships, product design, and also the commercial growth side of MedAscend. But bit of background, me and Hannah we're both senior medical students. So we built this from the sort of learner and educator side at the same time. And yeah, that's me. Hannah, I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
I think you gave a great introduction, Ahmed. I don't have a whole lot to say after that, but I'm Hannah. I'm also one of the co-founders of MedAscend. On my end, I particularly lead sort of the education liaison with different clinicians and educators, ensuring that our platform is sort of relevant and meets the needs of students today, essentially. But yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, welcome. So people that might have been living under a rock, how would you describe what it is to people, or if they were an alien, for instance?
You know, of course. So like the standard like go-to sentence that like most people resonate with is MedAscend is an interactive training platform, and it's been designed for healthcare students to practice their communication and clinical reasoning skills by communicating in two-way conversations with various AI patients, AI clinicians, and also AI relatives. So sort of bringing in that, encompassing that entire communication journey from start to finish. And it's really all about empowering students, increasing their confidence so that when they do encounter those real scenarios in their real practice or an examination or assessment, then they know exactly what to do and they have the confidence to do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, where did the idea come from? Obviously, this is not something that's just happened now. Obviously, this has probably been years and years in the making. But obviously, because of the AI boom, as it were, it's obviously come to the light now. But you must have been, dreaming of this, planning this when you was just a little bit younger.
So it actually came from our own experience, the whole idea. And we started it. It's now been over 2 years since we've started, mostly on like development and research and testing. And we've only sort of recently emerged and showing it to institutions and sort of going around and demoing and stuff. So we're both fourth year medical students, and early in our journey in medical school, we felt like there wasn't enough opportunities to practice conversations with patients. We felt that it was sort of a widespread problem, not just with us, but with our peers, and feeling sort of underconfident in talking to patients, especially patients that are sort of more complex to communicate with, they're sort of angry or sad. So we wanted to create a way that we could empower students to practice conversations anywhere, anytime, and that main focus on realism, making it as realistic as possible, that it feels like somebody's in front of you that you can have a two-way conversation with and you can get feedback on, so you can learn from that feedback and grow and grow and grow. So when you encounter these patients in real life, you feel confident, you feel competent, you can ask the right questions. Because at the end of the day, 80% of diagnoses come only from talking to the patient. Like, it's such an important and fundamental skill, but due to the costs of it and having to hire actors and clinicians to come in, we're just not able to be provided with enough opportunities. So we wanted to create a way to essentially change that.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're still medical students. Not just thought about sacking that off yet and just going full time, or are you just planning on going all the way still? I mean, you must be struggling with balance here, right?
A good question. I mean, we've made it this far. Yeah, we've made it this far. We're approaching our final year of medical school now. And I mean, this platform in itself has helped us so much through medical school, whether that be through exams or on the wards or just general remembering different disease profiles and stuff. So I think if it wasn't for this platform, we would probably be struggling a lot in medicine. But yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's definitely not for the faint-hearted. We're not gonna sugarcoat it at all. It is difficult, and everybody that we speak to says, like, "You're medical students. How on earth are you doing both of this?" And we're just like, "It's not easy, but we're really, really enjoying it." And if we weren't in medical school, MedAscend as an entire idea and all the features and functionalities that we have on the platform wouldn't have been like here today, sort of thing. Like it's really helped with sort of the product design. Like if we have a new idea, we've got the educators that we see every single day. We've got the students that we surround ourselves with that we can bat ideas off of like what would be beneficial for them, what they would want to see, what sort of pain points they have as well going into like the assessments and things like that, which I think is really a really really important aspect. But yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted, but it's sort of almost like a double-ended sword. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so you two are generally the faces of MedAscend. Do you have a team working behind the scenes?
Yes, so within medicine, so we've been able to scale our team over the last couple of years. So we've got our in-house development team, so that's composed of software developers and AI engineers. They're the brains behind all of the tech and stuff like that. Although me and Hannah get very much involved in like the product design and exactly how the features and functionalities should look like when it comes to actually building that. We're completely like tech dumb and have no idea how to the ins and outs of that. Um, so yeah, we've got our development team. We've also got our medical education team as well. So that's composed of 7 consultants, senior clinicians across the UK, Ireland, and the UAE, and they very much help with the sort of like clinical governance of the platform. Like within medicine, we have our own scenario libraries. So building our scenario libraries, doing some quality assurance on the scenarios created by the institutions that we're partnered with, and helping us really with like sort of the direction that medicine's heading. We've also got a clinical head of governance and data, clinical data, and that's very much leading sort of the research side of things. So our like upcoming like publications, our upcoming research projects, because that's really really important aspect as well within medicine, that we're making sure that we're very governed and embedded within research and making sure anything that we're building is being validated and is actually beneficial for the students who are going to use it, which is really important as well. And then we've got the business side of things. So we've got a business development lead who helps make all like sort of more business decisions and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, God, I can only imagine how busy you guys are, and what kind of learning curve you must be on. Have you thought about what your future looks like? If you were going to say, look, 50% doctor, 50% medicine, where do you think your balance is going to be? I mean, are you going to be completely hands off? Is that the dream, or where do you think it will be?
I think we've always said like being in medical school has been really important to help us like build medicine, and completing medical school is also as important. Being clinicians, being embedded within like sort of this environment, and like understanding the problems, also like then going into being doctors and things like that. But we very much are really enjoying the sort of medical education side of things, building these solutions. So like after graduation, after we qualify and things like that, medicine is still going to be a big part of our day-to-day life, and it's not going to be something that we're sort of going to put to the side or like give off or something like that. It's very much something that we want to keep on doing.
Yeah, same for you, Hannah.
Yeah, I think having that mix between clinical life and medicine is so important, especially for me. I think being in a clinical environment, especially in sort of a teaching environment, is something that I've always loved. Um, and being able to sort of continue from medical school, like sort of grow into a medical educator, is something that I definitely want to do, like post graduation.
And I hope you have enough time for family, friends, socializing, that kind of stuff, and you're not just 100% work.
Me
We try to be.
too.
Okay. Well, I would love to have a little look. I know you're going to do a little bit of a demonstration. What are we going to look at?
So I'm going to run through a few different scenarios of our virtual patients so you can have a feel of what it's like to talk to them, and you can see sort of the diversity and just how different each patient is. And that's what we want to really embody here at MedAscend, having students be exposed to as many different types of patients as possible. So when they go and speak to a patient of that nature, whether the patient be a little bit angry or a little bit irritated, they've had experience before, they've in a safe environment, so they can go in feeling more confident on what to say rather than just startled. I'll give you a quick story of my first time on. It was on a geriatric ward, and one of the patients was really, really angry. The doctors, they were all busy, they were on ward round, and I had to sort of communicate, and it was very, very daunting. It was like I didn't know what to say in the moment. I just almost froze, like shock. So being able to create that on MedAscend, practice it a few times, went back in there feeling more confident than ever of how to talk to a patient like that. So I'll expose you to a few different patients so you can have a look at what it's like on MedAscend. Okay, so the first patient we're going to talk to today, she has been admitted overnight following an intentional paracetamol overdose, and she's now medically stable and states here that, somebody's picked up that she does not want to be here anymore. So a mental health and suicide risk assessment has been requested by me, by the learner. So it tells you a little bit about what the task is. So here it's just about building rapport with the patient, exploring her mood, the circumstances of the overdose, assessing suicide risks, thought, intent, plan, if it's active or passive suicide, determining her current safety, and explaining to her what the next steps are appropriately. So I'm not going to go through everything in the scenario. I'm just going to give you a little flavour of what it's like to speak to her. So let's go into the session. Go. Hi there, Emily. I'm Hannah. I'm one of the fourth year medical students. Can you tell me a little bit about what's been going on?
Hi, Hannah. Not much really. Just feeling a bit rubbish.
Okay. I heard that you were admitted to hospital yesterday. Can you tell me a little bit about what's happened leading up to that?
I took some tablets, paracetamol, about 20, maybe 25. I think I was just feeling really overwhelmed. Needed it to stop.
Okay, I'm sorry that you were feeling that way. Was there anything that was making you feel overwhelmed?
Dear stuff's been a lot lately. My relationship ended a few months ago and I'm falling behind at uni. And I just feel like I'm isolating myself from my friends. It's all just piling up, I suppose.
Okay, I'm sorry that you've been feeling that way. How are you feeling just now after everything that's happened?
Not great. Still feeling really low and embarrassed. Ashamed that people know, like I'm a burden.
Okay. I want to assure you that you're not a burden and we're here to take care of you, okay?
Okay.
So I want to know a little bit about sort of the reason that you felt the need to take the tablets. Can you explore that a little bit with me?
I wasn't thinking straight. It all felt too much. I felt so hopeless. I suppose I just wanted it to end.
Okay, so there's a little short demo of what it's like to speak to one of our patients. As you can see, the patient here has sort of a visibly lower tone. She speaks in sentences that they're sort of blunt, that sort of require a little bit more on the student's end to get more information out of the patient. And that's just simply how a patient's been designed, to try and mimic as closely as possible what it's like to talk to a patient in that unfortunate circumstance. So I'm going to go ahead and show one of our next patients now. So let me just refresh this. So the next patient we're going to talk to, she is a patient. So her name is Yatunde. So I'm a medical student in the emergency department, and this woman has been waiting to be seen she's developed some sudden severe dizziness early today, and it's saying that she's a little bit frustrated just now. So my task is just to take a focus history from the patient and explore her symptoms. So it's a pretty basic one. We have various different types of scenarios, whether that be a history taking only, a review, breaking bad news. We've got scenarios such as, explaining diagnosis, explaining management, even de-escalation scenarios. So let's hop straight into this scenario so you can see almost the contrast and the difference between the previous scenario. Hi Yatunde, can you tell me a little bit about what's brought you here today?
I've been feeling terribly dizzy since this morning, and it has not eased off for a second. The whole room has been spinning. I feel absolutely awful, and I have been left sitting here for hours waiting for somebody to come and speak to me properly. Honestly, I do not understand what is going on in this place.
I sincerely apologise for the wait, but I assure you that we're here now to help you with what you've been feeling. I just want to understand a little bit more about what's been happening. So you've been feeling a bit dizzy. When exactly did this start?
It started suddenly this morning when I got out of bed.
Okay. And since then, has it stayed the same?
It has stayed there constantly since it started.
Okay. Are you feeling anything alongside it? Like, are you feeling a bit nauseous, or have you vomited at all?
Yes, I feel very sick. And yes, I have vomited.
Okay. Any feeling feverish at all?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And what's the biggest thing that's worrying you about this?
I am worried there is something seriously wrong. And I am also annoyed that I have been left sitting here feeling like this for hours.
Okay. So as you can see, the difference between this patient and the previous patient is almost drastic. This patient's definitely a lot more talkative. She's a little bit frustrated, and she makes that known that she's frustrated. And she's in sort of a different setting. She's in the more sort of triage area for the emergency department, whereas our other patient was in sort of a more ward-based setting. So I'm going to show you one more patient now, so you can see another contrast on how the patients are like. And this patient's one of my favourite patients because he has a little bit of humour to him. He's a bit funny. So it's in a general practice setting. He's a 67-year-old man, and he's booked an appointment because he's noticed yellowing of his skin. And this station as well is just a simple focus history for the student to do. So let me go straight into this. So as you can see before I start talking to him, you'll be able to see that he is visibly yellow. You can see a sort of yellow tinge to his skin. You can see a yellow tinge to his sclera as well. And that's to make that seem as realistic as possible. So often in simulated patient encounters in university, in the classroom, you don't always get the chance to talk to a patient that has jaundice. So it's all about increasing that realism for us here. So let me give him a chat. Hello there, I'm Hannah. I'm one of the medical students. Can you confirm your name and date of birth?
All right, Hannah. I'm Alan Curry, and I was born on the 11th of April, 1959. Nice to meet you. So, what's the crack?
Okay, Alan. So can you tell me a little bit about what's brought you in today?
Well, it's a bit of a funny one, really. Over the last couple of weeks, I've noticed my eyes and my skin have gone a bit yellow. My wife, bless her, kept going on about it, saying I was starting to look like one of them characters from The Simpsons. So I thought, Alan, maybe you ought to get that checked out, mate.
Yeah, it was a very wise thing for you to come in and get it checked out. What's worrying you in particular about this?
What's worrying me? Well, it's clearly not normal, is it? And it seems to be getting more noticeable, which isn't exactly a great sign, is it? It's the sort of thing that makes you think it could be something a bit serious, you know?
Okay. And have you been feeling anything alongside this? Like, have you been feeling feverish or a bit lethargic lately?
Well, I've been feeling more tired than usual. Definitely. Not exactly running a marathon, am I? As for feverish, I'm not sure, really. No real complaints there.
Okay, so as you can see here, this patient, he has a lot of humour to him. He's sort of smiling just now, has a little bit of banter with his sort of words, which contrasts a lot to the last patient that we saw, who was a little bit more on edge and a little bit more frustrated with everything that was happening. So that essentially brings me to the end of sort of our virtual patient demo. When you finish a scenario like this, you would move on to questions such as differentials, next steps, followed by personalised feedback that's mapped to institutions' domains. So the most important thing about MedAscend is it's completely customisable down to the way the patient looks, down to the background, down to the way they speak. We have two different modes. We have a video mode and we also have a voice only mode. And voice only mode is definitely suited for definitely some scenarios. What we find with students is having a patient in front of them makes them significantly more engaged. So we've compared the two different modes, and they each have their own place. So as I said, it's all about that realism, all about that customizability, and Ahmed will walk you through more of how it's what it's like on the back end to build a scenario and stuff. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the demo.
Thank you for that, Hannah. Thank you for going through the scenarios with us. I'm gonna go more into like sort of the building content, what educators have available within MedAscend, how to build a scenario, and also a little sneak peek into some of our other features that are also being enrolled into MedAscend. So this is our scenario builder. It's been designed to be really streamlined and really easy for educators to create different scenarios, and really been tailored for different programs and different healthcare professions as well. So we're currently working with medical schools, nursing schools, pharmacy schools, but also some maybe not healthcare professionals like policing students and things like that. So that's really the way that the sort of scenario builder has been reflected. So you'd start off selecting your scenario name, the program, the time that you'd want for the students to complete the consultation, any time alerts. You'd select the specialty, the setting that the scenario is being conducted in, the delivery mode. So Hannah mentioned we book cater for both video consultation, but also voice call consultation, the interaction type, the scenario type, which library it would be in. We have libraries within MedAscend, so if you wanted to organize your scenarios within different libraries or within our own libraries, and then the marking rubric as well that you'd want it to utilize. If I select voice consultation as well, on the next page, I can show you exactly how that would work when setting it up. Curriculum mapping. So curriculum mapping, this is the area for educators to make sure that the scenarios are mapped to their curriculum. So for example, I can click here, the NMC standards of proficiency, and then select basically which ones align most to that specific scenario. Similarly with any learning objectives as well that they wanted attached to that case. So if I go on to the personas tab, so this is where you would configure the actual avatar or the actual patient or the actual healthcare professional that you're speaking with. So you start off with the patient's name, the date of birth, the sex at birth, and then it would generate as well its own patient ID for you. You'd pick the thumbnail that you want to use for that patient. You choose the voice. So this is for the voice only mode that I selected. So that would be a thumbnail that would just be shown. If it was the video consultation, you would select the actual avatar that you'd want to speak to, that would be animated, that like how Hannah showed it. So you could see the voices here. You could listen to the voices as well, and it would give a description of each of the voices that you can utilize for that specific scenario. You can also set the character behavior, so setting their emotions, their communication style, their information disclosure. So that's really important. So how much information the patient gives, and like any questioning handling, and then their language fluency as well. So how fluent they are, who responds, and then any custom behaviors as well. So Next, I'm going to go into the pre-consultation tab. So this is where you put in the context and the task for the learner, so similarly to what Hannah showed beforehand. And then another really, really cool tool that we've included within the scenario builder, really just to streamline that process for institutions, is this AI scenario assistant. So the scenario assistant has basically been designed to streamline that process for institution using our AI technology to help the institutions build an entire case from start to finish using AI. So instead of the institution filling in all of these sections, they would just use our scenario builder assistant and build the case from start to finish as well. So that's a little walk through the actual scenario builder of things. I won't go through the rest of the steps, but basically you just fill in each section with the relevant information for that specific case, and then we would bring it to life. Next, I'm going to quickly hop onto our new OSCE circuit mode. So our OSCE circuit mode is our latest model that we've recently released. And it's basically allowing institutions to create their own OSCE circuits to really scale out the process of running in-person and virtual OSCEs. One of the most resource-intensive aspects of assessment for clinical competencies. So this basically allows institutions to create their own circuits. So I can go into one of these ones, and you can see you can basically create the circuits using the scenarios from the scenario library, assign the circuits to different rooms, and then you'd get analytics as well of them. So this circuit wasn't actually completed. Let me try and find one that was. So you've got an example here of exactly what would be what would be provided, including the candidates' links and things like that. To create a circuit, you'd hit new circuit, fill in again all the relevant details, station selection, you do the room assignment. The candidate flow would be how you'd want the students to register, whether that's pre-registered or walk up. Feedback policy, so when you'd want the feedback to be released, either manually or immediately after the consultation. And then you would review sort of the circuit that you've built, and then you can start that as well. So if we go back into circuits, you can see within the control room, you've got all of these scenarios and the candidates that have been allocated to them. And if I start the circuit, that will basically make all of the rooms, that will basically bring all the rooms to life so that they can become active and start that experience.
Yep, just to jump in quickly a little bit about how this actually works in practice. So how universities are using this is with their various different rooms in their sim centres, they are, setting up a laptop in that room. And instead of going in and speaking to the patient that's in there, you would go in and speak to the patient on the laptop. Once you're finished, move on to the next room. So essentially exactly like how an OSCE works, but in a virtual sort of manner. It can also be done not in the classroom, but it can also be done at home. So everyone can have their sort of laptop's device at home, speak to the patient, and then it'll just move you on to the next scenario once you're done. So there's various different ways that universities are using this. Even in immersive rooms, a lot of universities, they have various different immersive rooms. Stick this on their immersive room, student goes in, talks to the patient, comes out, moves on to the next one. So it's all about increasing that exposure. But yeah, I'll pass back to you, Ahmed.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Hannah. So yeah, the use cases for it are, there's many within MedAscend, and we've really tried to provide educators with those tools to make sure that any of the use cases that they're trying to utilize it for, they have it available within MedAscend to just streamline that process again. The last thing that I was going to run through is our upcoming feature, something that's not been released yet, but I'll give you guys an exclusive podcast preview. So this is our patient record system. So it's been designed to either be integrated within MedAscend scenarios, so within the actual task. So for example, in the pre-consultation interface, the task could be for the student to go and review the notes, similarly to in real life, where you go and review the patient's notes beforehand, look at their previous admissions, see what medications they're on, and then have a little bit of context going into the consultation. So you can do that as well. Or you can use it as a standalone tool, for example, within your simulated wards, adding that sort of patient record aspect. And the reason that this sort of EPR system came to light was mainly because, discussing with colleagues, discussing with educators, there's not that much exposure to patient records, to documentations, and having a lot of friends that are junior doctors as well. On the first year of the job, the majority of the time they're asked to then go in and document notes and do a ward round that they have no idea how to do. So this is really just streamlining that process and increasing the exposure to that at an undergraduate level. So we can see here, you've got your inpatient records or GP records, depending on the setting that the consultation is being done in. And then if I hit start session, you can add a name for that specific session if it was an in-person session. So I put year 3 in-person clinic. Oh, it's already auto-filled it for me. Perfect. I'd select the cohort that it was for, and then I could start the session. And you can see here, this is the facilitators mode for the electronic patient record. So you'd get the patient summary, exactly like what medication they're on, their history, their active problems. If you go on the timeline, it will show you the timeline of events that have been happening ever since they've been admitted to hospital, their past encounters or any past admissions, appointments, or anything that they've gone to, with a little summary of what the sort of conclusion was from that specific appointment. We've also got observations in News 2, so a completely interactive News 2 chart whereby you can see the different trends. And you can also record your own observations as well. So putting in different observations that you might have done on, if it was a manikin or if it was an active patient, and then that would be automatically added onto the table, onto the actual news chart. Results in imaging, again, really increasing that realism aspect of things. So students can request their own blood tests, like blood gases, urinalysis, microbiology if they wanted any cultures, and then any bedside tests. So if I was to let me do an example, what's not been requested. So if I do, for example, a mean cell volume, and has there been a urea done? No, there's no urea. Let's do urea. And this is random, by the way. I have no idea what the case is about, but just to show you a little bit about the interactivity side of thing, and a D-dimer, why not? This is probably the worst blood request ever done. And then basically what would happen is within the EPR setup, you can choose how long it would take for those blood results to take. So I think it's currently been set up on 1 minute. So we can come back to that at the end and see exactly what the results are once they've been generated. Onto imaging as well. So this is a really good area to input any photos of any images, any ECGs, X-rays, with their reporting as well, for the students to utilize as part of their clinical reasoning. Medication is our electronic patient record system. So basically, this is the area whereby students can write their own prescriptions, can suspend different medications, explain why they've suspended that medication, and have a look at their medication history as well, pre-admission wise. Documentation, this is where you can see different letters that have been that are in the patient's file. So having a look at that is really useful as well. Clinical tools, blood glucose, fluid balance, IV fluids, all of that sort of stuff, all of the tools, must scoring that are available to clinicians within their patient record system. Documentation is all about assessing the students to how to document. So after they've done that consultation, what are they going to document within the notes? So you would add a new note within this patient's file. That could be a clerking note, it could be a clinic letter, it can be GP consultation note, a discharge summary as well, for example. And then the last sort of bit on the sort of patient record system is the clinical communication section. So the clinical communication section is all about what happens after that sort of encounter, and what happens after that consultation, and who you're speaking with afterwards. So within the clinical communications, you can initiate phone calls, and these phone calls can be done to escalation to a senior doctor. It can be to respond to a nurse escalation or a structured family update. For example, you could have spoken to a patient and they've asked you to update the family. So your task might be after the consultation to initiate a phone call with the family member and update them on the patient's condition, for example. So yeah, that's a quick overview of the patient record system, clinical tools, and I promised I would go back to the results section. So you can see here now that our results that we've requested are available. So if we scroll down, we can see here that we've got our results that we've requested, and everything looks normal. The patient would be glad to hear, probably because I did some random investigations, but again, it would be more contextual. And afterwards, you'd submit the documentation, and then you'd get marks on that as well. So yeah.
Something else that one of my favorite features of the tools is requesting the urine analysis.
Oh yeah.
You're able to go into request, go to your analysis on urine, and then when you click that, similarly to how the bloods come up, a whole strip of a urine analysis will come up. So
there we go.
It's like that.
So you can, that's configurable as well within the EPR builder. So exactly how you'd want your urine dipstick to go. We also have AI technology embedded within the platform, so the institution or the educators don't actually need to set up every single thing. So what would happen is, for example, if I requested a blood test that wasn't set up by the educator, our AI would give the most likely sort of result depending on the presentation that the patient was eliciting. So yeah, that's a cool little preview of the sort of back end of the platform, OSCE circuit mode, the patient records, but also the builders. There's much more features that we would love to get into. You can see them all on the side tab there, but hopefully that's given you a better understanding.
Yeah, I think just to add in quickly as well, the reason that we've sort of created these different modes, especially with the EPR mode, is to extend that consultation journey to just a whole journey rather than a single encounter. So being able to talk to a patient and treat them from start to finish and sort of go through that journey with them is something that people felt were lacking in terms of communication skills, and being able to do that in a virtual setting, in an in-person setting, was really important for students to get exposure to that. It's one of my favourite things as well, now that I'm up and coming on the wards and getting used to typing notes and used to medications and stuff. It just helps with that journey so much. So yeah.
Well, thanks for that, guys. Hannah, one of the things that I noticed was, obviously this is a live, this isn't a pre-recording of you using your computer. I noticed how quick it was to go from one patient straight to the next. There was no faff. Loading times were actually quite low. But I was wondering how it would probably work on, for instance, maybe a low-powered Trust laptop with port internet connection, that kind of stuff. Is it installed software, or is it like a browser-based software, that kind?
Yeah, so our platform runs entirely on the cloud. So it's a website with everybody has their own login. The majority of people do it through SSO, so you're sort of in your little institution bubble. In terms of sort of connectivity, we recommend an upload speed of about 5 megabytes, I believe. And
yeah, 5 megabytes per second.
Yes, sorry, I'm not very great at technical stuff. So we recommend upload speed of that, which isn't really a huge amount of upload speed that's needed, and that's enough for it to work in the way that I showed, in sort of flowing two-way conversations with a patient that's very responsive almost instantly, and you don't have that lag when you talk to the patient. So yeah, we would recommend that. There's no other hardware that's needed. Like, you can use headphones if you would like, if it's like in a busy room. We have 2 different modes as well, so you can press the space bar to talk to the patient, or you can just have that two-way conversation. A lot of people prefer the space bar because there's obviously quite a lot of background noise in some places, especially if you're in a classroom setting. So we give that flexibility as well, but there's no need for downloading any software or anything.
Can it be used on an iPad or a phone?
Yes, absolutely. It can be used on both of those modes.
How does it handle things like accents? For instance, it picks up Scottish quite well, but any others?
Yeah, so we are compatible in over like 100 different dialects and languages, so we can cater to institutions all over the world, and we have various different universities using it in different countries throughout the world, and their feedback is that it has been great. It's been very responsive, and it's been as realistic as talking to a patient.
Nice. So the Geordies don't have to worry, or the Scouse.
No, they're safe.
So, one thing that I wondered was, have I ever thought about using it in, for instance, virtual reality or even augmented reality, that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, that's been something that actually has come up quite a lot. I think the thing about MedAscend and the thing that we really wanted, and one of our main missions was about scalability. And I think when speaking with a lot of institutions and a lot of like students and things like that, the issue with like sort of like virtual reality, although it's a really good tool to do it in person, is the scalability aspect. So you'll know, being a SimTech as well, having to have like bring in the headsets and things like that, and only being able to run them in person. When I feel like for medicine, we really want to increase that scalability access to, so removing all the barriers, removing all the sort of technical requirements that are required to run these sessions and just making them really streamlined. We've sort of moved up a bit from like just the web only sort of version to now immersive rooms and things like that. So our sort of immersive journey is like is growing and growing, and we would love as well in the future to have a sort of like VR compatibility just to increase the sort of like things that MedAscend can be available on. But I think at the moment we're just focusing on scalability and just making it as easy and streamlined as possible for institutions.
Yeah, I mean, kind of on the same vein is that it obviously sits very well with students, doing training to the masses, as it were. Do you see it being useful for maybe the higher end, maybe your regis or your consultants getting involved?
Yeah, so we already have different regis and consultants using it. I'll give a good example. So we're working with some consultant anaesthetists in Forth Valley. They're creating cases on pre-op assessment for anaesthetic trainees to practice. So rather than it be a student taking a history, it's an anaesthetist and they're talking to a patient that's about to have surgery and just running through the sort of checklist as well. And another thing that we're doing is pain consultations, so pain management, also with the team of anaesthetists, and it's the same with their trainees, not just anaesthetists but also junior doctors as well, giving them exposure to how to structure a pain history and getting feedback on that. And that was something that the team of anaesthetists were very passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, what you showed us was a couple of demonstrations of some, very good models, but with users putting in their own information. Is there a chance that things might not work well, or they might, the lip sync might go off, or something just doesn't work? So essentially, they're building it from scratch, really. And have you seen any mixed results in that kind of area?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. In terms of like sort of the actual setup of the scenario, so of course we give the institutions the autonomy and the ability to build their own scenarios. As I said before, we've also incorporated the AI sort of scenario generation features, which means that instead of the educators having to fill in each section, they can upload, say, a PDF or a Word document with a simple prompt, and then it will create the entire scenario in the format that we've trained it to, that we know it works in, the format that we believe it's the best sort of like practice and things like that. But if the institution was to opt not to do that and just to create it from scratch, before each scenario is published back to the institution, we have a quality assurance step. So once the institution created the scenario from start to finish, they would then send the scenario off for review. That would then land in our sort of like dashboard, and our clinical educator team would then look into the scenario, do some quality assurance on it, make sure that each of the sections have been tested correctly, and we would also test that scenario for you. So we would run it start to finish internally, see the patient responses, ensure everything works correctly. That process typically takes anywhere between 24 to 48 hours. After that, we would then publish the scenario back to the institution, and then either with any comments or any changes that we've made that we think would make the case better, or we would say, yeah, happy for that, we've published it back to you. You can now assign it to your students, or you can now use it within your like teaching sessions and things like that. So we have incorporated that quality assurance step, especially, and you said it earlier, there's sort of AI boom, and a lot of educators are maybe a bit weary about AI and utilizing it and things like that. So we try to provide as many sort of ways to provide the reassurance back to the educators that even though that it may be created using AI, that there's still that human touch, quality assuring, and making sure that everything's being tied up correctly together.
Yeah, it's refreshing that you've said that, because a little part of me inside was thinking, how do you deal with things like psychological safety,
Mhm.
that kind of angle? Because I thought, the instructor's probably just going rogue, and then I wondered, what about all the information, in between the prompts that they've given?
Yeah.
Because it's probably, for instance, the students that, well, they might they probably want to go off piece a little bit. They'll probably start asking some wonderful and weird
Yes.
questions, and that's probably not in the prompt. So where, I was wondering, where do they get all the information from
Yeah.
that kind of side?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think like as well as the prompts that are like given to like provided for each of the scenario within the actual back end of medicine, all of our patients, all of our healthcare professionals that have been created already have sort of like pre-training on and guardrails in place to ensure that they act appropriately. For example, so if the student was to go off topic or be inappropriate or do anything like that, then we do have guardrails in place that would steer the conversation back to exactly the context of it. And we also have like pop-ups that come up. So if it was really like inappropriate or just something that was not relevant, then a pop-up would come up and say, you need to treat this professionally. This is a simulated patient encounter. That wouldn't be an appropriate thing to say. And that would also be reflected in the feedback as well that the student would get after the scenario. So in terms of like the educator, they would need to just focus on the actual case, the actual content, things like the social history, medical history, the personality they were trying to elicit. But then on the actual sort of like things like the core training of the actual avatar models, it's all done by us.
Yeah. Just to touch base on the feedback bit, because I think we kind of brushed past it a little
Yeah.
bit. I mean, how can you guarantee that the feedback that the participants getting is right, and it's not, maybe incorrect from, I don't know, they picked up a different word or something in chat?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that's one of the most important things for us, especially. So, how we validated this is through an inter-rater reliability study. So, this is currently under peer review just now. So, it was done independently with a university where it was 150 scenarios were done with the AI encounter, and 2 senior clinicians were marking them independently. And we compared both the AI to the 2 senior clinicians and the medical educators to create an interclass coefficient to be able to observably create a metric of how closely the humans and the humans and MedAscend feedback aligns. And interestingly, the feedback agreements between our MedAscend platform and the 2 senior clinicians average was higher than between the 2 senior clinicians. So it almost provided us with the information that it can act as not only a very accurate form of giving feedback, both qualitatively and quantitatively, within a mark of each other, but it can also act as that standardization. So providing, a more standardized way of giving feedback. We know that particularly in communication sessions, that the feedback can vary so much from clinician to clinician. Everyone has their own way of marking, and everyone has their own way of, giving, the length of the feedback, or they may observe stuff slightly differently. So we were able to observe that our MedAscend's feedback engine was able to act as that almost middle ground between the clinicians, and it was able to scale that amongst hundreds of people at once while preserving the quality of the feedback. So we would love to share if you're interested in any preliminary results that we've got from that. But that was the most important thing for us to validate that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd really like the thought of is, especially with things like OSCEs, where maybe an instructor is sat in the same room doing the same scenario over and over again, and before they've done 10 times, it's probably really hard for them to stay consistent, and removing things like biases, all those kind of things that AI can probably do well, if it can do it well. I mean, it's a fantastic thought, isn't it?
I know, I agree 100%. I think, especially if you're marking 8 hours a day, it's really hard to stay consistent, and having that sort of cognitive overload as well, where you have so many things that you have to mark and take into consideration. There's bound to be human error exists, and there's bound to be aspects of human error that the AI might pick up on that humans necessarily might not pick up on. So yeah, the feedback is very, very important for us.
I mean, this will probably not be a new question to you guys, but one of the things that I was looking for, and most critics will, was the kind of the things with communication that a lot of people don't pick up normally. Your micro facial expressions, and you did mention that one of them did smile a little bit, but the difficulty of they did seem sometimes a little bit, I'll just call them normalized, and without the creases and the wrinkles and the facial movements. How are you kind of tackling those kind of areas?
Yeah, it's definitely a journey that we're going down. So around this time last year, the avatars were completely like different to how they are now. So like they weren't eliciting any emotions at all, and it was just sort of almost like an image with like the mouth movements, which was really cool at that sort of stage of things. So I think we're transitioning now, and I'm looking at our like most latest like sort of updates and things like that. We're transitioning now onto emotionally intelligent sort of patients. So patients who change their emotions as well during the actual consultations. So you're right to say that like there is still, it's not 100% perfect. It doesn't simulate humans one-to-one, just because of like sort of the limitations in the technology, but we are every single month getting closer and closer to that. So yeah, emotionally intelligence is one thing. So for example, if you're breaking bad news to a patient, they might start off being chill and like neutral, happy. But then as soon as you break that bad news, their personality might change, their tone of voice changes, they might be really emotional. And that's the sort of things that we're really working towards now, because that's the sort of things that as healthcare professionals and as future clinicians, you're going to need to be able to deal with as well, changing in person and emotions and how you would deal with that. But yeah, that's why we've also included the sort of voice mode as well in conjunction with it. So if it was more of a sensitive consultation, that maybe the visuals would be a bit more distracting in it, you can just do it as voice only or a phone call consultation, just so you can really simulate that. But we have both options in place for educators to pick from.
Yeah, I mean, it was really noticeable with the guy with the sense of humor. I mean, it was really refreshing listening to him crack jokes and stuff. But I felt like his face maybe wasn't interpreting his cheekiness, because obviously he's a little cheeky cockney coming through cracking some jokes.
Yeah.
And almost certainly everyone would probably have a little bit of a giggle to themselves with that kind of stuff. So it's nice that it's serious, but it's got a real human element to it.
Personality. Yeah.
Yeah. You did mention like people can upload thumbnails and stuff. Is there any thought of people uploading their own thumbnails and using their own voice, or is it just from a set scope that you guys have uploaded?
Yeah, no, of course. So within the actual platform as well, and we didn't show it, but we've got our avatar builder. So the avatar builder, institutions can create their own sort of avatars, how they wanted them to look like. So it's a simple form. Basically, you'd put in things like the age range that you wanted the patient in, like the ethnicity, any pathologies, a description of the background. But within the actual avatar builder as well, we have an upload image section. So adding a reference image. So that can either be a reference image of the background that the patient was in. So for example, if it was within your own simulation centers and you wanted it to really feel like it was like immersed within your own settings, then we could change the backgrounds to make it a part of your sort of settings. But then similarly, if it was a specific patient or a specific person that you were trying to simulate, like if I wanted you, Craig, as one of our patients, then I could build that as well within the platform. So yeah, again, as long as like there's sort of permission available and you were happy to be a patient, then yeah, we could create you and have students training with you hundreds of times a day.
I do not consent. All right, guys. Probably the hardest question of the day then is how much does it cost?
Yeah, no, of course. So MedAscend, the sort of pricing model that we operate is it's a session credit bundle license. So basically, we don't charge for the number of students. So an institution can have as many students as they wanted utilizing the platform via their SSO. We also don't charge for the number of account admins that can use it. So again, all of the account admins, all of the educators can have accounts within MedAscend and be able to create their own scenarios and manage things. The way that it works with the session credits, so a session is basically an entire consultation journey from the pre-consultation interface, understanding the task, and if there was any EPR integrations as well, conducting them, moving on to the actual consultation, then conducting any post-consultation questioning, any post-consultation documentation. Then there's a reflection section. And then after the reflection section, there's the feedback section. So that encounters an entire sort of session within MedAscend. And the session, we would agree basically with institutions at the start of it, understand their needs, understand how they wanted to use MedAscend, how often they wanted to use MedAscend. And then we would recommend one of our session credit bundles. And then the institution would take on the sessions and utilize them throughout the term of the license and however they wanted, whether that was via assignments or whether that was through like in-person sessions and things like that.
Do you do any kind of trials, demos, or are you looking to maybe partner up and do some testing, that kind of stuff?
Absolutely, especially around our newer features like the OSCE circuit mode. We currently have a call out for institutions who are looking to demo and trial the platform on the OSCE circuit mode to see how it actually works like in person, how streamlined it is, and then also getting feedback on that to maybe tweak some specific aspects and that sort of thing. Similarly with the EPR mode as well, we're looking for institutions to help test that and validate that. And then as well as a sort of general thing, we do offer demo accounts as well for institutions looking just to trial out scenarios for themselves, maybe build a case as well, and experience that sort of journey before actually going on to then getting a license for their institution. So absolutely, we have demos all the time. We'd love to have a demo and then give out demo accounts as well for the institutions.
Brilliant. And are you getting yourself away to any conferences this year where people might be able to see you?
Yeah, absolutely. We're all about conferences. So we're going to be at the ASME conference at the start of July. So we'll be there. We're also going to ASPE again. So we'll be at ASPE in November, I think it is, towards the end of November this year.
Isn't it, up in Harrogate?
Yep. We're also at IMSH as well. So next year, so we go to IMSH. Our first IMSH was this year, actually, in January. And also World Health Dubai as well. And then also a couple of other like more sort of local ones and regional ones that we go to as well.
Also, if people want to contact you or find out more information, where's the best way to get hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. If you wanted to learn more, then if you head over to our website, it's medascend.ai, and then you basically have all the information there on the actual platform itself. But if you wanted to learn more from us, then you can go on the demo section, fill out quick details, and then book in a call, and then we can have a demo and talk you through the platform, talk about your needs as an institution and how we can tailor it and how you can best utilize MedAscend as well.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much today. I'll give you the final word if you would like to sign off. Other than that, I'll thank you very much. Hannah, anything from you? Ahmed, what's it up?
No, I think you covered everything very well.
Yeah, all right, guys. It's been brilliant talking to you, and I absolutely would love to get my hands on it and have a little play around. But it's it's the future, and it is how we're looking at technology and how it's used, and it's great to see it. And people making it almost so easy to be accessible and used by almost anybody who are not technically gifted like us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very much. Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you so much. Take care. Bye bye.